The time has come for the Shadow Alolan Sandslash PvP IV Deep Dive Drill Run Edition. Yeah, Shadow Alolan Sandslash has Drill Run. It's kind of big time meta in the Great League now, and it kind of changes what kind of IVs you're looking for the Shadow Alolan Sandslash. So I figured I'd give us an update and let you guys know what you're looking for your Great League Shadow Alolan Sandslash. If you're not too familiar with this series, or if at any point in this video you get a little bit confused what I'm talking about, I highly recommend checking out my PvP IVs simplified video, link up above and in the description. Basically, get your feet wet before you dive off into the deep end here. And then of course, if you want to check out the PvP IV tables that I showcase in this video, or if you want to check out any of the information in this video in a text-based format, it's all linked in the description in my Shadow Alolan Sandslash PvP IV Deep Dive on Game Press. Without further ado, let's talk about Shadow Alolan Sandslash with the Drill Run. And so there's no confusion, Shadow Claw, which you have to Elite TM to get, but it's a fast Elite TM, so not a big deal. Here I have a list on PvPIVs.com of the 102 more ideal looking Shadow Alolan Sandslash IVs, and the big ticket item here is going to be having at least 125 HP. And the wins that you're getting off of having at least 125 HP are a lot of post, taking a charge move kind of wins. It's pure bulk based. So it can be a little bit on the flakier side, because tracking a fast move breakpoint is a lot easier than tracking charge move breakpoints. There's a lot more subtlety that can come with the charge move breakpoints. So having a little bit higher defense than the minimum I have here, which is 130.6, will make that 125 HP more consistent. But against a lot of expected attack weights of the Pokemon that the 125 HP is trying to meet, 136 is, pretty satisfactory. So I wouldn't be too bummed about that, but having a little bit more defense could be helpful. Similarly, having 126 HP can also be very helpful as far as having that comfort against a higher attack weighted opponent. A lot of the matchups that involve you taking 2 charge moves actually require 124 HP. It's just that there's so many 125 ones that if you're going to draw the line in the sand, you're drawing it at 125, right? But for the 2 charge move ones, it's usually 124. So if they have a higher attack weight that causes them to get 1 extra damage per charge move, then the 126 will give you that extra padding. And then the 125s, for the most part, usually have you eating just 1 charge move. So then if they bump their charge move up by 1 extra damage, then the 126 will similarly help you out there too. But of course, that comfort can also be gained through having a higher defense stat than the minimum of 130.6. So whatever one has the higher bulk product or whatever for you, if you really do have a tiebreaker kind of situation, I'd say check out the matchups on pvpoke.com and see which one looks a little bit more satisfactory for you. At the end of the day, I'd probably side more towards 126 and then a higher defense stat than that, if I had the option to do that. There is only 102 options here though, so to reasonably obtain one of these Shadow Alolan Sandslash, it's probably going to take you about 37 to 55 captures to have a 50% to 75% probability. So you might not get any of these, and that's kind of a bummer. You're no match for my iron will. I have never wanted to see that catchphrase more so than I do now that Shadow Alolan Sandslash is buffed. So what if you don't have one of these 102 IVs? Should you just not build Shadow Alolan Sandslash? And no. This is for these ultra tight, high-end kind of situations. The vast majority of scenarios that you're going to run into with your Shadow Alolan Sandslash probably aren't going to be these ones, but if you had to pick one and you had one of these as an option, that would be the one to go with. Now, if you don't have one of the 102 here, there are ways to cope a little bit more optimally, so I'll help you out there too. Oh, quick before I talk about the Copium IVs, I just wanted to mention some higher defense stats that you might want to be aware of. I think overall HP is the big ticket item, and these defense breakpoints aren't that big of a deal, but if you happen to have the big defense, it could be worthwhile to you know, pay attention to the win cons that you might have from it. One of the bigger ones is going to be against the Shadow Victory Bell, starting at about 133.6 for defense. That's for the rank 1 Shadow Victory Bell, so you're probably going to need more defense than that, right? But if you get the defense breakpoint on a Shadow Victory Bell, then you can flip the 2-2 shield scenario and the shield disadvantage scenarios as well. So you spend 0 shields, they spend 1, you spend 1 shield, they spend 2. You could flip that matchup. Now, if they have the Swag IVs from my recent Shadow Victory Bell PvP IV deep dive, link up above and in the description, then you're probably going to need closer to like 137 defense, if not a bit higher than that. So, you know, your results may vary if you're trying to chase that particular matchup. I think overall, if you do clear at least 133.6 for defense, it could be worthwhile to like try to learn like how to identify early on if you're getting the defense breakpoint or not, should you wind up in that matchup, just so you know that you have that, you know, that you got it like that you can spend 1 shield less and still beat them and not be caught with your pants down. Another big defense stat would be for the Sableye matchup, starting at 134.29 defense. If you're up against a reasonably attack-weighted Sableye that's trying to get like CMP on Swampert and Venusaur and stuff, then once again you'll need about 137 defense again. But getting the breakpoint against the Sableye doesn't flip any of the matchups. It can potentially make the 0-0 a little bit more consistent, but for everything else it'd just be winning with more HP than you would otherwise, which could play into your favor there. And then there's also a Skarmory defense breakpoint starting at 136.47, where you could flip the 1-2 shield disadvantage situation, which could be nice if you run into a Skarmory in this meta. Don't think you will, but you could. But I'd say overall the defense breakpoints here aren't exactly goals. They're just stuff to be aware of if you happen to have that defense. The bigger ticket item is going to be having that bigger HP stat. So here I'd have what I'd consider to be the 470 like copium or optimized coping kind of Shadow Alolan Sandslash PvP IVs. And I will say that not all of these IV spreads are created equal, so it's going to be a little bit less than 470 IV spreads. But the focus here is I'm using just the minimum defense, just full on dump statting it, and then at least 119 on the HP. Just running mass basic simulations, I found that 119 was kind of like a little bit of a safety net, but it's not a huge deal. What I would do here, if you're trying to compare stuff, is just sort this list by bulk product here, all the way at the end. Not all PvP IV lists have bulk product. You have to enable it with a checkbox down here at the bottom. But anyway, sort it by bulk product, and I'd say the higher you are above 16,000 bulk product, like the safer the Shadow Alolan Sandslash is going to feel. The lower you are, the less safe it's gonna feel. But I think, you know, 16,000 or above is like, you're probably good. Now this list in particular is using 117 on the attack as a cutoff, and this is just to get breakpoints against the Azumarill. I'd say the Azumarill breakpoint isn't like the end-all be-all for Shadow Alolan Sandslash. It's just that if you don't have the premium level of bulk, well then you may as well have that little bit of extra something going on, and getting the breakpoint on Azumarill is an extra something. With this breakpoint, you can now KO it in the 1-1 shield scenario off the Ice Punch, so you only have to land 1 drill run to KO Azumarill there. And then similarly, it can help you overcome the Hydro Pump Azumarill in the 1-1 shield scenario as well. If they bait with the not Hydro Pump, then you can KO them before they do reach the Hydro Pump. You do that because you can KO them on the Ice Punch now, where before you need to use a drill run. So it's just like a nice little consistency maker for that matchup. Along the way, you do get breakpoints against Pelipper. There's an Ice Punch breakpoint for consistency in the 1-1 shield scenario at 115.8 attack, which the high bulk ones can actually reach that too. Not exactly a goal, more of something to be aware of, or like a little mini tiebreaker for the high bulk ones, but just a little consistency marker there. And then similarly, you get a little extra consistency against the Lantern. Against the rank 1 Lantern, you just get the attack breakpoint. But if the Lantern has a bit of a defense weight on it, like what I recommend in my Lantern PvP IV deep dive, link up above and in the description, well then you'll need a little bit of a baby attack weight, starting at 114.79, I think is just like optimally safe. I guess that's more for like the high bulk Shadow Alolan Sandslashes, not the biggest priority, but just something to be aware of. And then obviously the 117 attack stats knock it out of the park. You do also have the chance to get the breakpoint against a Shadow Swampert, which the rank 1, you'd need 117.58, but Shadow Swampert usually is going to be thrifting on the defense, so 117 will probably catch it. And it's mostly like Copium. You know, you're against Shadow Swampert, you got to beat it down before it reaches that next Hydro Cannon, which is going to totally knock you out, and the extra Shadow Claw damage could knock it out in that uneven situation. There is also the potential for it to overcome Shadow Swampert in the 1-0 shield advantage situation, provided the Shadow Swampert has like low enough HP along with the low enough defense for you to do that. But I wouldn't really rely on it. It's just like that extra bit of tech that could maybe help you out in a dire situation against Shadow Swampert. And then as an added note, if you don't have a Shadow Alolan Sandslash from either of these lists, I wouldn't worry about it. It's like basically this list here is like more optimized coping. It's coping with putting a target on a Azumarill's back, right? So if you don't have this attack stat, I wouldn't worry about it. If you don't have the one from the, you know, the more premium list, you probably don't. Right? So Shadow Alolan Sandslash is still going to do like 99% of its jobs as well as it would, you know, otherwise. It's just that extra bit of tech that you could be getting from those specific IV spreads. But if you don't have one built already and you don't have any of these IV spreads, Shadow Alolan Sandslash is still Shadow Alolan Sandslash. If you've got greater than the 16,000 bulk product here, I think it'd be A-okay in my book. Obviously, the higher the better, even if you don't have the more premium IVs. So don't let that disable you from using Shadow Alolan Sandslash. It is just a fast Elite TM, so it's not the hottest item, you know, on the planet. But if you do got a more premium one, well then, congratulations. Definitely want to go with that one. So that's about all I gotta say about the Shadow Alolan Sandslash right now. If you got any questions on this content, of course, comment below. Let me know what's up. I'll be happy to help you out. And if you enjoyed this kind of content, you want to see more like it, well, make sure to subscribe to SwagTips. I'd also like to give a special shout out to these Patreon supporters. If you want to start Swagman on Patreon, link in the description. And if your question is, what about Ultra League Drill Run Shadow Alolan Sandslash? I'm sorry, man, I really don't know. I'm pretty crunched for time, and these are a lot of time-based events, you know, and I could only do one, so I went for the Great League. I did the Great League, and honestly, I don't care about Ultra League. I only really care about Great League, so if I had more time, I'd answer that for you. But I didn't, so it might not happen. I'm sorry, but hey, at least you know the Great League information, right?